If I were to sum this video up really quick, I would have to say that this is the best mixing template that I have ever made so far. Let me go over why. It's got everything that you would want an amazing mix template to have. Amazing workflow, analog routing techniques all in the box, highly sophisticated yet extremely easy to control and navigate through. This is my 2021 mixing template, and I have made it available for you to download right now. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Thanks so much for being here with me. If you haven't been here before, my name is Emily Bowie. I make videos all about mix engineering, different mixing techniques that use an analog routing workflow all inside the box. I also talk about music business topics such as music publishing and licensing, and the occasional album review every now and then. So stick around if you think that might be interesting to you. As you've probably seen from the title of this video, I believe that I have truly created the best mixing template on all of YouTube. All the mixing template subscriptions and paid download sites. I think this is the best one that will fit any genre of music. But I'm not going to keep rambling on about that, so we're going to get straight into the mix template and show you what I'm using and how it all works together. So I took the time out to actually create a mix template that is minimal, straightforward, neat, simple. I 100% use this exact mixing template on every mixing session that I get. It's absolutely everything that I need, and I'm going to go over all of it with you right now. The first thing that you'll notice is my coloring for each section of the template. This, of course, can be changed and customized to your preference. But let's jump in and go over each section of the template. I'll walk you through how all of it works together here and makes your music sound better than ever. Now, in the description below, you'll be able to grab this template. I've made this template available for you to download off my website. A couple of bucks because it did take some time to make this, but you'll be able to own it. It's yours forever. I'm going to leave all of the plugins that I used on here, but if you don't have these plugins, then you'll still be able to replace them with similar plugins that you have in their place. So let's have a look and see what all is included in my 2021 mixing template. First thing here are my Vca Faders. I have 9 set up here, but once you've downloaded this, you can add as many as you want. Maybe you have something that, a controller that just has 8 faders on it, or you want to use one that's got 16. Go ahead, customize this. It's all open for adjustments and customizations. I love using the Vca Faders. I can route groups here, and it's where I do most of my volume automations. Like for instance, this one right here with the star, that's my lead vocal fader, and I have that grouped to control my outputs of my overall lead vocal output. It just really comes in handy so that you can keep everything all together here, especially if you do have a control surface that you want to do all of your rides on. And the other ones are all labeled there for you. These are the ones that I use. Sometimes I'll go ahead and add another one if I've got a lot of pads in a song, a lot of keys going on that I want to break up into different sections. Just makes everything really easy and focused right there in the middle. These next 2 tracks here are just audio tracks that I have included in this demonstration. These will not be included in the download. This is just to give you an idea, a visual of how the lead vocal will be routed into this mixing template. And with that being said, let's just go ahead and look at that. So once you've merged your recorded audio tracks into this template, you'll take your lead vocal, you will go to your buses here, and search for input 33. That's what the input of these 3 parallels will be. And everything is already routed for you. You don't have to worry about any of the routing that's going out to your stereo output or your mix bus. So your lead vocal is being outputted to 3 of these parallels. And I do have a video that goes a little bit more in depth with what that all entails and how that works together. So I won't be going over that in this one, but I will leave a description down below that you can follow along, so that it kind of explains what's going on here and what kind of effects we're adding to make the vocal a lot more, it's just fuller and richer, and to kind of stick out a little bit above everything else. It's a great vocal processing technique. I got a lot of views on that. It's something that I think a lot of people are finding that they really like, and that it's really bringing their vocals to life, and I'm really proud of that one. That was a technique that I learned from Vance Powell, so it does work. So for this video, I'm just going to kind of go briefly over a lot of that, and there's some other things down here in our parallel compressions that I do have other videos for. All of that will be linked up. There's also going to be printable text versions of all of this that's included in your download, so that you can print those out to kind of follow along and know where everything's routed and why. So your lead vocal is going to go out through a vocal crush, a vocal buzz, and a vocal clean. Those are going to be sent to 2 different buses. The crunch goes to the crunch. The vocal buzz will go to both the crunch and the clean will go out through the clean. Now, these are outputted to your stereo out or your mix bus, and to a parallel vocal bus, which is our parallel vocal compression. These are already set up and routed for you, ready to go. Now, all of our effects sends are going to be on the vocal clean bus here, and we'll get to all of that in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and leave this signal generator. This is just a stock signal generator from Pro Tools, and it is deactivated, but I will leave that there because that's kind of how I use that signal to set up and calibrate all of the parallel compressions down here with the drum bus, the drum crush, and the music bus, and also the vocal bus. I just use that to set them and show you how much gain that we want to add back in. Down here below, it shows you that the drum bus, drum crush, and music bus will get 1 dB of gain put back into the overall mix, and the vocal bus gets 2 dBs. Again, there are videos explaining in detail how all of that is set up. So both of these will be going to the vocal bus compression right here. These are returning the specified amount of gain back in. The next thing that we come across, of course, is the other parallel buses. The first 2 here are just for your transient designers and a little bit of compression after that. What I use this for is that I have my transient designer 1 that I will have my kick drum sent to. The transient designer number 2, the D2, is for snare. It doesn't get used all the time, but it's there ready to go in case you just need a little bit more definition in either your kick or snare. Next parallel compression is the bass compression. Now for the bass, I've got this new plugin, new for me anyways, to try out, and it is emulating the stay level. And I, always know that that's going to sound good on bass. That's the hardware version is what a lot of people use on bass compressions or a parallel bass compressions like this. So I thought I would try it out in plug-in form, and that's what I had the bass track here. I was trying that out, and I like it, so it's going to stay. I think it's about $100 to buy, and has a free trial period that you should try out. I like it. I'll probably end up buying that one. The next parallel is the bass sub, and I've just got the R bass on that one. It's just to add a little bit more sub features, just to blend in a little bit so that it's not directly on a bass, because sometimes we've got our bass and it sounds great, but we just want something else to just fill out just a little bit of that lower sub area, and that's why I like to have that on my bass sub parallel here. Works great that way. And then the other ones that we've talked about here is our drum bus, drum crush, music bus, and vocal bus. Again, all of that will be in the description, the videos that go in a little bit more detail on how all of those work together and how they're all calibrated and set up. Moving on here, we've got all of our effects returned. This is all coming off of the vocal clean bus here. We've got our our slap effect, which I love, and I just kind of have a default setting here with the Echo Boy, or my default setting, which is around 100 milliseconds, because that is the classic Elvis Sun Records slap echo sound is around 100 milliseconds. I think that's the most similar to that. A little bit of feedback, and you know, we've got some pretty good saturation on it. That's kind of my go-to setting on the slap. Next, I gotta have an echo, and for here, you know, we've just got some Echo Boy. I'm also trying out the Valhalla Supermassive. This thing can get pretty crazy, but I think that it will add a lot of cool things to certain songs. And kind of the one that's a little bit standard for me right now is the Valhalla Delay. Lots of different settings and modes on that one. And I'm gonna leave this on here. I may actually do a separate video on this one. This is for when we need to duck down our effects. So let's say you've got your vocal and you're really liking this delay that you've got going on, but it's kind of muddying up the words and the cleanness of that vocal. We do want the tail end of that effect to come through, but not on top of the actual lyric. And so a good trick to know is that compressor, a clean compressor really, that's got this sidechain key here. What we do is you can send any of these that are coming from the lead vocal, any of your sends. You just find it here in your bus. So I've got, okay, so the slap, one of the slaps. We click on that, and now this is our key. So anytime that vocal comes through, I've got this set. You can set the attack and release and all of that. You unbypass it, and it's going to duck the echo effect, the delay effect, the reverb effect, whichever one you have it on, is going to duck that. And depending on when you have it, the release set, that effect will come back through. All right, moving on. I've got just some pretty standard reverb stuff. We've got the Uad Emt 140. I kind of like to set this one on B. That's kind of a popular setting. And then over here with the kind of room, the chamber sound that I like going for, just standard Al Schmidt, because I believe he is the one that knows it the best. Little pre-delay comes with that, rolling off a little bit of the low end. I've got the mix all the way up, of course, because I'm controlling that with the returns here. And I love that plugin. I also use a chamber. Sometimes when I get tracks and I want them all to kind of sound like they're recorded in the same room, even if they're not, even if they were recorded in different places all over the world, you know, I want to do something to kind of bring that together that just gives it that kind of that fullness and that richness that I'm used to hearing my favorite records, because they're usually all recorded in the same room. You know what? In fact, I'm going to go ahead and include that with this. So give me 1 second. I think that would be good. So that's going to be included there. Put in a little bit of this stuff on each of those tracks, or each of the track buses. So I probably wouldn't send it on a kick, snare, toms. I would have my drums grouped to a drum track, and then that's where I would put my send to the chamber. And the same with keys, strings, guitars, maybe background vocals. That might be cool. Just something, you know, if it sounds good, it's good. So that's going to be included there. All right, and moving on to the last reverb here. I always like to stick a mono reverb in, just because sometimes, you know, you may think like if something's a little bit more of an intimate track, then we'll put a mono reverb on that in the verses, and then maybe the mono reverb, and then we also add in our chamber or our other plate here, the stereo plate, and it just gives it just a little bit more fullness. So you've got the verses with the mono, and then the chorus with the mono and the stereo. Just kind of brings things to life, gives it a little bit more excitement, it changes it up a little bit. So I do have the mono reverb there. These next three effects, we've just got a little bit of a widener with the ozone imager. You know, that can go on vocals, guitars, keys, anything that you just kind of want a little bit more of a spread to. And I kind of like the ozone one there, and it's the only one that I have. That's the only widener plugin that I own, so that's what I'm going to use. The doubler, I'm using the Soundtoys Micro Shift. To me, this one's just a lot easier to just click one of these buttons. I do have the Waves doubler, but I just seem like going in and typing in +6, -6, it just became a little too complicated and time consuming. So this is way easier for me, faster, and you know, that's all we're trying to do is be more efficient in our mixing and using things that work. So that's why I came up with the micro shift as my doubler. And the next one is just doing something a little bit different, a little fun here. A lot of people use guitar pedals to add effects to their vocals. So I'm using that in the box here with the amplitude plug-in. It works great. It comes with a ton of different things. So you can, you know, add a whole bunch of them here. You can change different settings with the cabs and the mics and racks. So that's something that's fun and creative to work with. And you would just maybe send a vocal or background vocal or any other instrument to this effect here, and that works pretty cool. All right, so now into our stereo outs here. The first thing that you're gonna see is the master fader for our stereo bus or your mix bus. I have it labeled here so that there's no confusion. I just like to call my mix bus my stereo bus. So the master fader, so this is everything that's going into here. So if you had everything, you're loving how it's sounding and you need to bring it down, I've got a meter here, and I'm like, well, you know, it's just, maybe it's a little too hard. Maybe it needs to come up just a little bit, but I'm kind of liking how everything is sounding. You can control all of that with this fader right here, and that will control what goes into your stereo bus. And the first thing that I have on my stereo bus is one of my favorite plugins from Waves, and that is this NLS bus. This is you know, console emulations. The spike is your SSL, mic is EMI, and the Nevo is, of course, a Neve console. I tend to prefer the EMI one. However, the last song that I mixed surprisingly sounded better in the SSL, but I will tend to leave it there on the EMI. I've got 1 dB of drive. I'm pulling back half of that so that there's not as much gain. We're just kind of getting that that vibe, that console kind of vibe, that saturation into our mix. Next after that is the UAD, the pull tech that they have here, the EQP 1A. Nothing is boosted or anything initially. I just kind of like things to go through it a little bit, and if I need to, you know, pull up some low end, make it a little fuller, brighten it up some here, it's right there. It's a great plugin. Next after that is something that I do have in, is rolling off some really low end. So if if adding something in the pull tech here, I've automatically am cutting some of that just kind of structures it up a little bit better, and it just makes it sound a little cleaner. It just kind of comes through your speakers a little bit better, a little bit more enjoyable. So I've always got that in right there, and sometimes I will boost at 74 or 84 depending on the song, and usually the 18 here is going to be turned up a little bit, but for now we'll just have that out. Now this one will be bypassed. After you download it, you'll see that this one is bypassed. I don't like to have this one active while I'm mixing until I get, you know, closer to the finished product and what I'm trying to achieve. Then I'll go ahead and put that back in, unbypass it. I do have the mono maker all the way up to 95. So what that means is that everything 95 and below is going to be cut out of the stereo sides. And that's basically what this plugin does. This is your mono section and your stereo section. So you're listening to any of these frequencies, it's all going to be in the mono area. And everything out here is on your sides in your stereo image. So it's always a kind of a good rule to bring out some of the lower frequencies off of your sides, focus them in the middle. Anything that needs to be kind of lifted on the sides gives it a little bit more round and fullness and brighter. Really good plugin, but we will have that one out when we combine our template to our mix session. Moving on, here is something, just adding a little bit more air back in. I've got a little bit of air at 20K. It always sounds good in, unless you've just got a track that's just extremely high end. It's always going to be on my stereo bus. And finally, our compressor here. Of course, this right here will be changed pretty frequently, and the release time. But all of this is kind of set the way I like it, and I don't need, too high of a ratio on that, because I'm just kind of wanting this to like really just tuck everything back in if it gets a little out of control in certain parts of your song. And to be honest with you, as you can tell, I'm a pretty big fan of the UAD plugins, and I cannot decide if I like this Waves 2500 compressor better than the UAD or not. Of course, you've got an analog switcher. I do have that in all the time. For me, it sounds better. I think I'm probably a little bit more old school when it comes to stuff like that. So anything that says analog, unless it is just too noisy and crackly and doing something that it shouldn't, I'll probably always have the analog switch in. But there's just something about this one, I feel like it just works better for me. It seems, with the tweaks that I'm doing, I can kind of get the sound that I want a little bit faster than the UAD one. So that is the only reason that I haven't bought the other one, and I've just stuck with this one. And that may be just a little bit more of a minimalistic approach and not spending money on something that you like versus something that you think you should have and like, if that makes sense. So I stick with the Waves, I guess, until they make me pay for an update. And last but not least, on the stereo bus here is the L1, and that is just for putting a ceiling on there, or if I want to kind of bring the volume up a little bit more, I can do that. And I think it sounds pretty good. So the next track in here is what I call hot. This is coming off of the stereo bus. So the stereo bus, your mix bus, is being sent to two different places. It's being sent to your print track, and it's being sent to the hot track. Now, the hot track, which is right here, is an audio track. So I will engage the record button, and I can add some limiting on here with the maximizer. I can kind of pick some sounds a little bit. I can also go in and dither this out, because what this is set up to do, what this is designed to do, is this is going to be sent to the artist who has given me their recorded tracks to mix. I am going to be pushing up the level on this and, put in this limiter on it so that we can bring it up to a level as if it was mastered. Something that they can listen to on all of their devices and kind of check each thing out to see if there's any sort of revisions that need to be done, that comes up, come down, anything like that. But this is going to give them a pretty consistent level so that they can also compare to other songs that they have that they're listening on Apple Music or Amazon. Then they can kind of compare those at the same level. So that's what the hot track is. And I've got Insight on there just to check the levels. I've got it set to -9, but I don't think we need to go any louder than that. If they wanted to compare it to a CD, I think everything's pretty standard at -9 on that. Other than that, this is what we're monitoring through. So this will be engaged. If this is not engaged and it's not green, then you won't be hearing anything because everything is routed through that. So you will engage that. Something that you might not know is that if you have a reference track, the band, if an artist sends you a reference track, kind of their demo mix of all of this, then you can slide that in to the tape track here. So you would just take it from your file, drag it in here. So if you wanted to quickly A/B your mix process with the rough track or a reference track, you would simply press play. You could listen to your work while this is engaged, the track input monitor here. And then if you wanted to quickly listen to the rough or the reference track, you would just unclick it. And then you would hear that track. Again, click that, you hear your mix, unclick it, you will be hearing whatever track you've put in there. But then once you want to print it, you'll of course move that other track. You can set up another kind of a dump track here, a dump audio track that you can move the rough or reference back to when you print your mix that goes to mastering. And then of course the last thing here is just the monitor. This is what the input is going into your print. This is where you can monitor that. This is where I stick my VU meter. And then this is something kind of cool that iZotope offers, and that's their Tonal Balance. And I've just got it set to modern here. So if you have that, I'm sure you like to use it as well. And you can kind of see if these lines go up into kind of the middle here, then you've got a good modern sound. And then if you have bass heavy, they all change. There's even a country one here, but I'll leave that on modern. And then you can also look at it as a little bit more of a fine. So if you had just a little peak here that was still within the range, that's something that you might want to consider and pull back. Or if it's something that is too low there and you need to maybe fill that out a little bit better, make it a little bit more smooth. So that's a really good plugin for that, and to kind of check your overall mix before it's sent. And that is my 2021 mixing template. This is one that I am so happy with. It's perfect every single day. I'm excited to use it in a new mixing session. It's clean. It's got that console routing flow, and not just filling up every single send slot with effects. It's all flowing nicely and not overly complicated. I think that's where a lot of times we can mess up our mix templates, is by jamming them with stuff that we never use and giving us too many options on putting plugins on every single insert that we have. This template gives me none of those issues, and it has truly improved my workflow and sound quality. So if you do want to grab this new 2021 mixing template and be using the same one that I'll be using, there will be a link in the description below. You'll be able to click that and download it. Cost a couple of bucks. You'll get that link to download it with all of these plugins, and there will also be a printable text download that will explain how to route all of your recorded audio tracks and how to merge this template into your mixing session flawlessly. I truly believe that this will help you mix smarter and faster, not to mention produce better sounding mixes. Anyways, thanks y'all so much for stopping by and spending some time with me today. Grab the template, links in the description. You won't be disappointed. I wish you all a successful and happy new year. See y'all soon.